Radhari Jaya Giribharadhari Jaya Gopijana Bhalabha Jaya Giribharadhari Jaya Giribharadhari Jaya Jashodanandana Jaya Brajajanaranjana Jaya Brajajanaranjana Jashodanandana Jaya Brajajanaranjana Nana Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimani Sevain Veshaisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Grantara Shimam Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 64, the Deliverance of King Nriga, text 4 to 6. Text number 4. Charmajastantavai pasair bandva patitan arbaka nasak nasaknuran samadharthum Krishna ja chakyur utsaka charmajastantavai pasair Batva patitan arbaka nasaknuran samudhartum Krishna ja chakyur utsuka Charmajaistantabai pasair Badvapatitam arbakha Nasaknuran samadhartum Samudhartum Krishna ja chakyur utsukha. May I please chant? Charmajaistantabai pasair Badvapatitan arbakha Na shaknuran samadhartum Krishna ja chakyur utsukha. Charmajaistantabai pasair Badvapatitan arbakha Na saknuran samudhartum Krishna ja chakyur utsukha. Charmajai, made of leather. Tantabai, and made of a spoon thread. Pasai, with ropes. Badhva, attaching. Patitam, the fallen creature. Arbakaha, the boys. Na asuknuram, they were not able. Samudhartum, to lift out. Krishnaya, to Lord Krishna. Achakyuhu, they reported. Utsukaha, excitedly. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. They caught on the trap lizard with leather thongs and then with woven ropes, but still they could not lift it out. So they went to Lord Krishna and excitedly told him about the creature. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami explained that because of this chapter, the Jadu boys, even Sri Pradumnya, are described as quite young. This must be an early pastime. Text number 5. Tatra gatyarabindaksho Bhagavan Vishwabhavana Bhikshojharabam bhikshujjaharabhamena tankarena salilaya. Translation: The lotus-eyed Supreme Lord, maintainer of the universe, went to the well and saw the lizard. Then, with his left hand, he easily lifted out. Text number C6. Sa utamasloka karabhimiristo biha jasadya krikala sharupam santapachami karacharu varna Swargi Adbhuta Lakarandanambarashak. Translation: Touched by the hand of the glorious Supreme Lord, the being at once gave up his lizard form and assumed that of a resident of heaven. His complexion was beautifully colored like molten gold, and he was adorned with wonderful ornaments, clothes, and garlands. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militangena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Ramapa Swami. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadi Shatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. So, we heard yesterday that the description of these very sober instructions of what we're going to be hearing in this chapter are sovereign instructions for all to follow, all devotees especially to follow, which is the consequences that mischaps or mistakes in our path of devotion, especially when it have to do with offenses towards devotees, eh, can create big obstacles. There's big consequences sometimes. There's consequences to our actions and our choices. So it's a very sovereign fact. In this situation, we're talking about a great king, a pious king, King Nriga, extremely pious king who was dedicated to the service of the Brahmanas. But with such a dedication, part of his standard procedure was that he was constantly giving in charity to the Brahmanas. So these are very wonderful, appropriate religious duties of a king, of administrator. Because especially for those who are in the responsibility of administration, for kings, presidents, for any type of leader that has under their care the well-being of society, it's always very important to protect those, especially those who are very essential for the wholesome existence or the health of society. And topmost of those are brahmanas and cows. So, and then follows by women, children, and the elderly. So those five are to be always protected. And it's explained that the protection of the brahmanas in society secures that society are properly guided and directed. So when we have a body of brahmanas that are well protected, well maintained, and secure by the administration or by the leadership, then what happens is that you create the environment in which transcendental knowledge can be given to people in general, not only by instruction, but also by association, by example. Then you have proper examples. A Brahmana means someone who actually live according to the principles of spirituality. Someone who knows Brahman. Brahman means, um, a spirit. So Brahmanas are those who have transcendental knowledge and can teach transcendental knowledge. Brahmanas are considered the head of society in the body, in the social body. The Brahmanas are the head. So if we analyze, our body, all parts are important, but if you're going to make a case for which one is the most important, then you have to make a case for the head. You can lose some limbs, your arms, you can lose your legs, you can even have a defective stomach, but you can still make it. You can still live. But if you cut the head, there's no, you finish. There's no, there's nothing. Or if the hex goes defective and goes crazy, then you also finish. You can't do anything. So, um, we have cases of a body completely useless, but the intellect, the head completely lucid and powerful. Say there's a famous case of this scientist. What was his name? Who used to have Alzheimer and used to be um, what was his name? Famous. Murray, you remember the famous American scientist who has this degenerative. He was in a sitting chair and he's communicating only with a machine. Uh, yes, it's famous. Yeah, I have it in the tip of my tongue. Famous guy. Anyway, the body completely shut. He can move. He's all twisted. He can walk. He can do anything with his body. But his mind was so powerful that he created a whole way of, writing books, teachings, giving speeches, etc., etc. So the brahmanas in the social body is like that. So it's very important to protect, to make sure that the head of society is very well maintained and in a very healthy condition. And similarly with cows, because um, cow is not only a sacred animal, but it's also um, considered one of the mothers of humankind, and also provides what is called the miracle food. In Ayurveda, it's explained that the body has 7 layers. starting with the skin and then going through muscle and then going through this all the way to a very subtle um, uh, part of the body that deals with the prana. The prana means the life force that nourishes uh, the whole body, that is able to transmit the energy throughout the whole body. So, this prana element is present in all living forms, and also not only in living forms, but also in the elements. So, you can have prana in the water. So, it's explained that that's why the Ayurveda recommends certain type of water, not just any type of water. So the water that comes from streams, that comes in the mountain, and this movement, then that water through the sun rays captures the prana. And but then when that water is taken by modern Ugra Karma society and tries to manipulate it in order to provide a product for business, in other words, for enterprise, then you filter it, or you create this, or you put that, or you pass it through this, and then every one of those things takes the prana away. So in general, all these different distill, filter, etc., that type of waters, they take the prana away. Similarly, with fruits and vegetables, they hold prana when they're fresh, when they're unprocessed or uncontaminated by chemicals and all this stuff takes the prana away. Nevertheless, so the body, it is explained, that takes these food elements, or this, water, whatever you consume, then there's a whole system, digestive system in the body, that what does, it breaks away all those elements, and at the end is taking that prana from whatever you consume, and then being able to transfer it to all the different layers of the body. And so, your body becomes nourished. So it's explained that it takes about 30 days for something that you consume to cover all the different layers that are there to become fully nourished. So as you eat, all this nourishing is happening gradually. There's only one foodstuff that immediately nourish all the 7 layers, and that's milk, cow's milk. Immediately goes through all these layers. And therefore, is the food that is declared as the food for the sages, because it's very simple and immediately, nourishes all this, not only the gross part of the body, but also the subtle parts of the body. So cows has a very important role, not only materially, but also spiritually, because every element that is produced from the cow's body is considered pure and is used for sacrifices. It's used for sacrifices. Even the stool and the urine of the cow is used for sacred things. It's purifying. So there's something that is called there's a process of worship that is called the Panchagabya, which is the five elements that comes from cow that is used for worshiping the deity. And that's milk, yogurt, ghee, cow's urine, and and cow's stool. And this is used like that. So so it's quite wonderful. So cows must be protected. And when it comes to woman, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna is making the case, he explains that the essential role that the women have for securing a healthy society. Because when there's pollution in the system, when there's no proper protection, then the vulnerability becomes, especially for women, to actually procreate um, children that are unwanted children. It's called Varna Shamkara. So this Varna Shamkara means children that are born uh, not following or not being protected by following proper samskara rituals or proper sort of the process of conceiving children. So this create a huge chaos in society. My parents once revealed that they conceived me when they were after some party and they were intoxicated. So um, I think I was not conceiving the most auspicious uh, arrangement. So Krishna's mercy is common. It's common. So so the protection of children is the future of society. So you actually guaranteeing the future leaders of society, as the children must be protected. And the protection of the elderly is because there is where lies the wisdom in society, the experience. And we see when a society is a fallen society, all these elements are unprotected. And that's what we see in the present. Every single element, all the five are unprotected. So King Nigra was such a type of pious leader, king. And especially, he was dedicated to the protection of the Brahmanas and the cows. And it took one mistake for him to fall down. So, externally, we listen to this and immediately you think, how can that be fair? We always question the fairness of how things happen, especially, we're very sensitive about being treated fair. Every single one of us, we have this sensitivity that someone may judge us wrongly, and we receive we are at the receiving end of some unfair treatment. So when we hear something like that, we immediately become, you know, sort of, it's like a red alarm, some red thing flashing. Ooh, if it happens to someone like him, like this king, just one simple mistake. It was not his fault. It was not his intention. He just made a mistake circumstantially. If it happens to him, I have to be very, what to speak about myself. So we immediately become, oh my God, okay, 1 second. Just think about this, how this thing happens. King Negra is going to narrate how the whole thing happens. But, one may question, well, why the Brahmanas were not able to see this? Because what happened, if you all recall, he have this procedure of giving in charity many, many cows to Brahmanas. So one time he gave this particular Brahmana so many cows. And it happens that one of the cows that he gave in charity to this Brahmana drifted away from the group and went back to the stable of the king without the king knowledge. And then comes the next Brahmana, and then he gave, a whole bunch of cows to the Brahmana. But among the cows that he gave to the second Brahmana was a cow that escaped the first Brahmana, you know, like that. So then now these two Brahmanas say, wait a minute, that's my cow. No, that the king just gave me that cow. No, but he gave me the cow. So they're starting to fight. The king goes and tells the Brahmanas, oh, my dear gentle Brahmanas, please forgive me. It was my fault. I didn't realize that I gave to the second Brahmana a cow that was given to the first Brahmana. So please forgive me from that mistake. Please consider this. I will give each one of you 100 cows. You take 100 cows, you take another 100 cows, and I take this little cow back, like that. We replace one for 100. Now you may think, the Brahmanas say, wow, this king is so nice. In fact, he's so charitable. Yeah, it's a mistake. Err is human, right? We have that type of thing. To err, to err is a human thing. We all prone to error. It's just one of the four natural defects of the human being, the human body. So we make we err, we make errors. So you may think these Brahmanas may understand this thing and they feel, but no, they were so upset about this that they cursed. No, they didn't curse. They actually went off. No, we don't want no cow. We don't want, we're out of here. They were very upset. So when the king passed, he left his body. He had to face the consequence of unhappy Brahmanas, offended Brahmanas, even in a situation that was unfair externally. Now, it's sobering when we think about it. Even if we make a mistake, my intentions, because in this case, we're talking about, you know, the essential intention. The king have very dharmic intentions. His intention was to please the Brahmanas, to protect them, to provide. So that's his intention. But then we have the particular incidental action that ended in being an error. An error. So we may have the situation in which our intention is good, but the end result, the, the action that we take on that good intention may result in someone becoming offended. And what do we do with that? And then you have the situation that even through the effort of the king, the offended brahmanas were not pacified. And still, that king had to suffer the consequences of that. So, in one sense, really, you observe this king and you see that throughout he did the right thing. His intentions was right. His action of giving in charity through that intention was right. When circumstantially he made a mistake, he immediately took corrective actions. He owned his error. He took responsibility and he offered some type of correction. So he took a corrective action. He offered the brahmanas, something even more generous. So he did everything right. But at the end, even throughout all his right actions, the brahmanas were dissatisfied. They didn't accept. They remained offended and upset. And someone will think, well, I did what I need to do. What can I do? You know? And still, he have to suffer the reaction. So, what do we have to learn about this? How careful we have to be. I mean, this king was very careful. And he did, everything that needed to be done. And still, you have to suffer the reaction. Now, one may say, then, okay, the problem is not the king. The problem is that the system, the judgment system, the justice system has a problem. Right? And we see here, say, for example, in our modern context, in this society, we question the justice system so many times because there has been so many uh, uh, instances of abuse of justice and the failure of a justice system to give proper the to pass a judgment in one sense. So we may question Krishna's system. In this case, is Krishna being fair? Krishna's system he have, so King Nriga, when he leaves his body, he goes to Yamaraj, who is the supreme judge in Krishna's system, and Yamaraj tell him, well, here you go. You have some bad thing that you have to suffer, and you have some good things, many good things that you have to enjoy. Which one you want first? And King Nigra say, give me the bad things first so I get that over and then go to my good thing. So, okay. So your judgment for your mistake is that you become a lizard. It's like, oh my God. And not only a lizard, but you're a lizard that is entrapped in a, in a hole in the ground. So you're a huge lizard entrapped. So it's not just the misery of being a lizard, but a lizard that is entrapped in a hole. It's not a lizard that you see in an island, sort of taking the sun and eating some flies and things like that. No. So it was pretty heavy judgment. So Krishna's system, is it fair? Sometimes we question, our in our own experience as devotees, in dealing with situations that we may see as being unfairly treated or misunderstood, and we question, sometimes, uh, you know, how fair this is. Is it Krishna? I mean, how, or my spiritual master, or the devotees, how are not they seeing this unjust thing? I mean, there's so many things that we see going through a society of devotees in which so many errors, grievous errors, has been exposed. And sometimes we see that some people may be judged very harshly, and some others are just floating around like nothing happened. So we may question the system, but the principle that we learn as we go through um, is, you know, how we react, or how we take all the circumstances that we're presenting, how we respond to the obstacles or the situations that we have to face while going in Krishna consciousness. Like, um, you know, if I find myself in a situation that I feel like, say, King Nriga, he finds himself being a lizard by that mistake. So I may consider it's very unfair, or he may consider it unfair, but what do you do with that? How do you react with that? So in his case, he never gave up his position of of devotion and connection. So how we react is very important. And Krishna expresses that in the Bhagavad Gita. Because in general, when we're conditioned, we tend to see things in a very close range. In this, from this perspective, we tend not to see the bigger picture. We tend to see just the frames that are in front of me. So I tend to see, oh, there's this very unfair situation. I'm in this situation because of all these external things that surrounds the situation, and it's not fair. So I tend to see this right now. But Krishna conscious means that we have to expand and be able to see the big picture. And the big picture, the question um, is not questioning the judgment of this particular, the judgment that have been placed on me, especially by others, but it's actually, what is Krishna trying to teach me? What is the thing that I have to go through? What are the actions that I have to take when I'm placed in this circumstance? And Krishna gives us a clue in the Bhagavad Gita in the way he deals with his devotees, because there's a special connection between Krishna and his devotees. It's a very intimate, loving connection. These instructions appear in the Bhagavad Gita in the chapter 9, which deal with devotional service, with the connection, the special connection that is there between Krishna and his devotees. So Krishna says that even, even if my devotee commits the most abominable action, even, not just a mistake, but actually something abominable, even if that happens, if, so this is the question, this is the thing of, even if we find ourselves making a grievous error, if we remain engaged in devotional service, and when we talk about remain engaged in devotional service, it's not okay, you know, I do it, I keep doing my service. Some devotees sometimes react like that, you know, more like, I show you type of thing. It's out of pride. But no, you remain doing devotional service with this, as described by Srila Rupa Goswami, that is devoid of this karma and jnana, devoid of this sort of sense of self, false ego, but just in a favorable way towards Krishna. If one remains doing this type of devotional service, one has to still be considered, Krishna still considers the devotee saintly, even like that. And therefore, Krishna tells Arjuna that by this type of action, the fallen devotee becomes immediately Dharmatma. He becomes purified, pure. The words of Krishna are like, he quickly becomes righteous and obtain lasting peace. So therefore, the famous prayer, Kunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Pranashyati. You declare boldly, Arjuna, my devotee will never perish. So this type of action, this type of mood, this is how we deal with any circumstance in which we may, is for a factual thing. We will make mistakes. We're conditioned souls. We will make mistakes. We're constantly making mistakes. It's natural. It's expected. It's expected. So, but even through all those mistakes, if we remain fixed in the process with the proper intention, my intention, even though my actions may not match my intentions, my intention is to become a pure servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Lord Krishna. That's my intention. That's my desire, to become Krishna's pure devotee. And although that intention is not matched by my present actions, because I'm conditioned and I'm making all kinds of choices that are not matching those ideals, if I remain in the process and I have my heart becomes still connected to that proper intention, then Krishna will take me to that other space. It will happen. It will happen. And in the case, the end result of King Nigra having to go to this whole tribulation is that he became touched by Krishna's hand and became perfectly liberated. So it's a, I mean, as we go through the pastime, we can look forward to hear much how the whole thing becomes, a, how you say, open or display, unfold, how this whole pastime unfolds. Um, and just appreciate um, Krishna's mercy. That that's when we look, we lost the big picture when we get caught in the moment, the situation, the circumstance that appears to be sometimes unfair or unjust. But the bigger picture is that Krishna is looking after you. And whatever He's placing in our past is meant to bring us closer. Even if it appears to be a situation that is questionable or maybe quite unfair, we can go through with the faith that is there for a reason and I have to understand it. And when I come to understand it, that the end result is that Krishna will touch us and will become perfectly purified. Any comments or questions on this? Karina, did you understand better this time? You have a question, Krishna?
In reflecting on King Nirga's era, um, one would have to acknowledge that there was a certain unconsciousness in terms of how he was performing the charity. I mean, it may appear a sort of simple error, but still, if he's performing charity, he has to be very conscious because the Brahmanas are highly conscious. So there was an error.
Yeah, yeah.
So he may have accepted that he made that error, or tried to pacify the Brahmanas, but in actual fact, there was an error in consciousness. Because if you're dealing with highly conscious persons, you also have to be highly conscious. So it's not, just a kind of dutifully giving charity, but not considering what you're giving or what you're giving. It has to be, carefully done. That thought came to my mind.
Yeah, it's a good point. Is in general, things are not as simplistic when we talk about them. We may highlight a particular point, but actually things are more complicated. It takes, like they say, it takes two to tango. So, um, so there's more to unfold on that. Yeah, and like I think you mentioned His Holiness Rupa Swami responding to a devotee asking about, even after I try, I not being able to pacify some individuals, after I may have made a mistake, and then Rupa Swami explained about the sobering consequences of, so you have to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying until finally you're able to, so one may, that's part we don't know in the narration, if the king keep trying and trying and trying to pacify these brahmanas, or you try, they didn't take it, well, what can I do? That type of thing. So we don't know. So there can be much more details of, because Krishna's justice system is perfect. But the good thing is that if you look at the heart of the king, to be able to have the situation in which his punishment actually was a blessing, because he became part of Krishna's pastime, and he was able to be touched directly by Krishna himself and have that darshan. So, that's what yogis are trying to do through many, many austerities and lifetimes. And there he is, he's getting that benefit. But yeah, it's a good comment.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, of the nature of charity to brahmanas. So even like in a current context, um, the charity should be something that's valuable and something that's new and something that can be used by the brahmana. So, and then there's the other part where, charity is given just dutifully, or it's not with the proper understanding.
Or even conveniently.
Yeah, maybe it's convenient, like something one doesn't want.
Yeah.
So one is actually giving to a brahmana something that is one's viewing as something that one wants to discard, and then is giving it to a brahmana. So it's not giving to a poverty-stricken person who's in dire need of something, but it's giving to a brahmana something that one is discarding. So there would be, like in the modern context, in the present time, that could be something that one would have to look at the nature of the charity and how it's actually viewed. And yeah, so certainly King Nirga was giving something valuable, and certainly it was something that was correct and a correct item to be given to the brahmana, but except it was done a little unconsciously.
Yeah, although, there's a great difference between this great personality and his charitable mood, that some very unconscious elements that are usually you have in the temple, you know, when people have old furniture that, have nothing, what can I do with this old furniture? Oh, let me give it to the temple. Or you have old clothing. I mean, we have it all the time. People come with bag of clothing and here for the devotees. And some of those are not in great condition. So it's okay. Is there's something genuine there, but it's not necessarily the the appropriate thing to do. Yeah. So yeah, you have to be. It's very important to have this consciousness, and that's one of the sovereign instructions. How important is to be very conscious when you're dealing with brahmanas and devotees, especially when you're trying to serve the devotees, to do it in a way that is very, 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 very conscious on satisfying the devotees. And the question comes, well, what about if the devotees are very difficult to satisfy? Well, in this case, we see that these brahmanas were a little tough. They didn't, they were not taking a simple, convenient exit to it. So And nevertheless, the point is that it is, um, there's consequences. There's consequences. So therefore, just we try our best to be careful. In the case of Queen Nigra, his his consciousness, his heart was in the right place. And because the heart was in the right place, he received the protection of Krishna. So it's about where your heart lies. So if you see devotees as, some pitiful, poverty-stricken person that you have to, that will gladly receive your discarded things, um, then that may not be the right attitude. But if you see the devotees as this, um, essential association that is in your life, and out of gratitude you want to serve, then that's a different thing. So you may make a mistake, but if that your heart is in the right place, then you will have, the proper result at the end. Murari, you wanted to?
Hmm. It's a big subject. Um, and I was thinking along the lines of when someone makes, and I was thinking like sometimes when a devotee might be, what's the word, harmed or runs into a situation where someone might verbally hurt them or they suffer some kind of hurt, and the devotee takes it within and doesn't accuse the other person or the situation. Uh, they accept the situation and they secretly uh, pray on it, take it to Krishna, and but secretly they carry hurt, and the perpetrators um, may not even be aware that they've offended um, the devotee, and but the devotee just doesn't lash out. He just internalizes it, suffers maybe pain, hurt, and tries to overcome it. So the situation that caused all of this, both parties may not even see the big picture,
Mm.
but it's like it was meant to be. Uh, the devotee learns to accept pain or whatever suffering and prays to Krishna and even forgives the perpetrator. Um, and eventually the big picture might reveal itself and the devotee comes out much stronger and realizing that the situation may have made him stronger in the end and closer to Krishna. And the perpetrator is given an opportunity, if he's fortunate enough to get the big picture, to grow. and realize his mistakes in a sense that he can grow from that experience of maybe it was an ego thing and has a chance to advance. So if we are fortunate enough to see the big picture, then we can see that these things happen. Perhaps they're even sent by Krishna in order to help us to realize um, that we can grow from certain situations like this. Not seeing the big picture, it's kind of awful.
Mm.
Bad feelings on both sides. There's a lot of suffering and pain, and we just have to be patient when these disturbing things come into our lives and just hope and pray to see the big picture eventually. And seeing that, we know we have grown out of that situation and see everything entirely in a different light, and that wasn't as bad as we thought it was because we've grown from it, we learned from it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, just hearing what you said, it just comes to mind that again, you know, is the test of how strong or how clean our intention was, is how we're able to learn from pain. You know, we all have to go through through these sort of painful experiences in Krishna consciousness. It's painful because we're pulling out stuff out of that are very much ingrained. I don't know if you ever try to pull out some hair or something that infected or something, and there's pain, or when you're trying to pull something out that is deep and it creates this painful experience. So uprooting anarthas is a painful experience. So it's natural. We have to go through that. So where our capacity to learn from pain shows where our intention is. If my intention is I want to be purified, then we can immediately, all these painful experiences are our best, is our best learning, process. So that immediately start to expand our capacity to see the big picture. That's how the whole thing start to open. No pain, no gain. That's the motto, no? So if my intentions are not as strong or as clean, if my intention was more about sort of achieving certain selfish interest type of thing, if my selfish interest overcomes my devotional interest, then my capacity to learn from pain is very narrow. And then what happens is, and instead of this experience of pain opens my capacity to see the big picture, the experience of pain narrows my capacity to see just my whatever it strengthens my conceptions of myself. So it's quite something. It's all about where your heart is. So if my heart is about either becoming pure or purifying myself or even serving, being very fixed in serving my spiritual master or my teachers or my my spiritual authorities, then that intention will help us go through pain and expands, being able to learn. So I constantly have to look at my intentions. I end with this because I got that advice from my spiritual master that, um, when considering sometimes, if it makes sense for me to keep doing what I'm doing, because it looks like I could be more effective at serving him doing something else. And he, when he struck me to stay put, he says, constantly look at your intentions. Constantly look at your intention and pray. Not only look at your intention, but pray to Krishna on a daily basis to maintain your intentions pure. So it's all about that. We constantly look at our intentions, because that's going to guarantee our capacity to go through the whole process, which is supposed to be painful, you know, because we are not healthy spiritually. So we have to go through all kinds of surgeries, to become healthy. And Raminta, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was kind of little surprised about Brahmanas being kind of not forgiving in a station like that. But also, I wanted to talk about donations. That sometimes it's like a third element in this whole system. It's like the earth, like them all. Like,
Talk a little closer
oh,
to.
sorry. Like when you don't do donations, of course, it's much better, much more kind and noble to give like new things. But like it is like a third element in this whole situation is like earth. Then we don't use or reuse things like it's the refuse piles are getting bigger and it's like it's polluting like earth. So it's should be like some kind of like a way of not donating, but like maybe reusing things, and I don't know, some more ethical way for earth. That's the only
Yeah, yeah,
comment.
yeah, for sure. It's not, we cannot be, like black and white on everything. Again, it's all about your intention. So if your intention is to serve, then we want to make sure that is the right thing. So one good thing is that when we want to, when we think something can be used to serve the devotees and to facilitate the devotees, one sure thing is that we can ask the devotee, would you have use for something like this? It's something that I have that I don't use, that would you have use for something like this? And the devotee may say, oh, no. Or the devotee may say yes. But sometimes we make the assumption, oh, no, this could be useful, and then we give. That's what Krishna Archana was saying, that you make sure that it's useful. It's like that. So then, yeah, then you make sure you ask this question. That's a much conscious type of service. That rather than to be unconsciously, and dumping a whole bunch of things that at the end the devotees have no use for that. So it becomes now a burden on the devotee to do something with that, you know, rather than something that is useful. Okay, so I end here. Grantara Bhagavatam Ki Jai.